Hello, everybody, and welcome to Starting Small Music. I'm Justin McCormick, and you're about to hear a conversation with an artist, musician, and music industry professional on their journey and how they got to where they are today. At Starting Small, we like to take you on a journey uncovering the untold stories of your favorite songs and artists. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Just keep a smile on your face and it'll be okay. Try not to be bitter, you gotta do it either way. Keep a smile on your face and it'll be okay. So when life throws a jab, you gotta duck out of the way.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Starting Small Music Podcast. Today we have Dan Hocchalter with us. How you doing today, Dan?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. So getting right in the beginning of your story, where did you grow up and what was your childhood like?
I grew up in a suburb of the Twin Cities up in Minnesota, hence the hat. And
Gotcha.
Yeah, I had pretty normal childhood. Just grew up on a small suburban street and played baseball and hockey and music as well, obviously. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm from.
Now, when you were growing up, who were some of the first bands you remember consuming that kind of got you interested in music?
Well, so the first cassette tape I ever owned was I got two for my birthday. It was Vanilla Ice and MC Hammer, right? So that was like probably 1990, something like that. I would guess. I was like 8 years old.
Yeah.
But the first music that I sought out and purchased with my own money, it was it was kind of like two sides of the same coin. Like I was really into like 90s rock at the time, and Metallica was one of like my favorite bands ever.
For sure.
But I was also really into country music too. So my first country CD that I ever bought was an Alan Jackson CD. So I had my older sister was dating somebody at the time who was really into country music, and my mom was a big Willie Nelson fan, but I wasn't really into country music at all until I started kind of seeing these videos on CMT and kind of that whole like wave of 90s country that happened. And I just got hooked and went out and bought an Alan Jackson CD. It was my first one I ever got. And I just fell in love with 90s country and 90s rock and a little bit of 90s hip hop too. So I'm kind of all mixed up in there when I was growing up.
For sure. Now, was it those like 90s country albums that made you want to start playing music, or did your parents put you in like lessons growing up?
Yeah. So when I was really young, and my parents, well, me and my sisters were, when my parents were working, we would go to my grandma's house, and my grandma told my parents that she thought that I had interest in music for whatever reason. Like, I was 3-4 years old, and I guess just like, bobbing my head and just like kind of interested in whatever music was happening.
Yeah.
And so they thought they'd get me started on music lessons. We didn't own a piano. My parents, neither one of them are really musicians. But they were watching TV one night and they saw this group of little kids playing, Suzuki violin on like, PBS or whatever it was. And they were like, oh, maybe we should do that. So they sought out a violin teacher and bought me a little tiny violin. I was almost 4 years old. So I was kind of too young to decide what I wanted to do, like there was just like,
Right.
This is, they just exposed it to me at that age. And yeah, just stuck with it, I guess. Did like classical music lessons kind of, from age 4 till probably 8, 9, 10, something like that. Which was right about when, 90s country started kind of happening. And then I started kind of hearing that kind of stuff.
For sure.
And it just kind of is like, oh, that sound is actually, it's a fiddle, but it's actually the same instrument as what I've got here.
Yeah.
And play it a little different way, and you can make it sound like that versus what I was doing. So that's kind of what got me into it.
Now, you moved to Nashville at a really young age at 20. So is this something you're plotting out during high school that like, I just want to get out of here. I want to get down to Nashville where the music's made. How did that process look like?
Yeah. I wasn't like ever like, oh man, I got to leave. Cause I loved, where I grew up, and I still do. I miss Minnesota and stuff. But yeah, when I was in high school, I played a lot of music with a lot of different folks, almost all who were older than me. Like I never was in like a high school like garage band or anything like that. Like I was always like the kid that was in this band with these grown-ups, you know,
Yeah.
and you know, we met this group of musicians that was a pretty eclectic mix. It was a guitar player, and then there was an accordion player and a drummer, and like this kind of hodgepodge of musicians that just had been playing music forever. Um, we got tied in with them, and they kind of took me under their wing and were like, oh, well, you know, well, this kid can come out and play music with us too, and so we just kind of did that. And we would play, you know, county fairs or, you know, senior citizen homes or, you know, whatever kind of, you know, moose lodges and VFWs and all that kind of stuff. Um, so that's kind of where I got started, like performing live and kind of playing in a band.
Yeah.
And then I started playing with cover bands that were a little more established in the area that kind of had like a weekend warrior. Like every Friday and Saturday they would play in some of the bigger bars and music clubs in Minnesota. And I was kind of the young guy in that band. And just through those experiences, like I really I had the bug and I really wanted to play music.
Yeah.
And then yeah, when I turned 20, I just felt like it was the right time to move to Nashville and give it a shot. So yeah, that's kind of how that went down.
You know, it's funny. You kind of have a similar story to Brad Paisley. I remember reading his book, and he had the same thing where he was playing with a lot of older people. He's like, I was lucky. I always get to play with veterans, but they were veterans of the Vietnam War.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, always starting
Exactly.
with
Yeah.
people that are older than you always helps out.
Yeah, I learned a lot, you know, like we would play, you know, like let's say there was a gig on a Saturday night and it was at like, you know, some VFW say or some sort of like, you know, group function like that where there was maybe a dance and there was a, you know, a band playing and they would have the songbook because they'd been playing music together for longer than I had even been alive at that time.
Yeah.
And they had the songbook of all these like sheet music of all these, you know, it had like the lead sheet with the lyrics, and then like above it had like the guitar chords, like the tab kind of pictures for what the changes are.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know these songs, you know, these were songs that were recorded in like the 60s, you know, and so it was the first time. It was kind of a double whammy. Like I was exposed to all this awesome old country music that way that I wasn't familiar with yet at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then also just kind of trial by fire, like they're playing the song that they know and I'm trying to follow along and trying to learn how to maybe improvise with the changes. I'm not reading the sheet music and playing what's on there, but I'm seeing what the chords are and trying to figure out what to play. And then, you know, hey, fiddle solo, then you got to just kind of make something up, you know, and
Right.
hopefully figure it out. So that's kind of how I learned more doing that kind of stuff. I also took lessons once a week from a fiddle player in Minneapolis, which was, you know, beneficial in its own way, but just being in a band, you know, and the music's going and you know, here you go, take a solo, what you got, you know, you just trial by
Right.
fire kind of thing. Just learn so much that way.
Now, when you first get to Nashville, you go to Belmont. What did you study there?
So I moved to Nashville when I was 20. And Belmont was kind of I had already gone to school for a couple of years up in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I didn't know about Belmont when I graduated high school, but I had heard of this later on. I'd heard of this school that Trisha Yearwood went to and Brad Paisley went to, that where they majored in music business, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh man, I want to be in the music business, so that's what I want to do. So Belmont was kind of the a reason to move there with a purpose instead of just moving to Nashville and crossing my fingers and hoping something, you know, like I had a reason to go to Belmont with some sort of plan, and I studied music business there, which was great, but also through school met so many other just people like me that were musicians and new to town and trying to get plugged in. However, and that was just the biggest benefit for me, was just meeting people. The first session I ever played on in Nashville was at Belmont University, and I forget who the singer was, but it was this band put together, and the guitar player was John Osborne of Brothers Osborne.
Oh,
So
wow.
I met John when I was like 20, and you know, he was the hotshot guitar player at Belmont way back then, and so just like, you know, meeting him, and there's just so many other people that are either musicians or artists or songwriters, or they work on the business side of things that I met through that school. It was a really just great opportunity just to kind of get plugged in.
For sure. Now, was it during your time at Belmont that you ended up getting picked up by Lonestar to come play with them?
Yeah, so that was kind of crazy how that happened. So I had applied to Belmont University, and I had found out that I had been accepted, and I was going to transfer in. This was in the summer of 2002. Sorry. Yeah, 2002.
That's the year
Summer
I
of
was born.
2002.
That's crazy.
Don't tell me that, man. That hurts right here.
No.
Yeah, 2000. So 2002, got accepted to Belmont, and I was like, all right, I'm going to move to Nashville in the winter for the winter semester and do that. So I only knew one person in Nashville. He was also a fiddle player, who we'd kind of grown up not together, but we both were from Minnesota, and we both played fiddle. So it's kind of a small, community of high school kids playing the fiddle in Minnesota. There's not thousands of them.
Right.
So we knew each other, and I knew that he had moved to Nashville and whatnot, and so I started just reaching out to like try to meet other people. This was 2002. There wasn't Facebook, there wasn't Instagram, MySpace, but some people had websites. So I was getting on Google, and I was like, Garth Brooks Fiddle Player, who is that? Okay, so and so's Fiddle Player, who is that?
Yeah.
And if I had a way to reach out to people, I would just cold email them and be like, hey, I'm a fiddle player, I'm moving to Nashville, you got any advice, whatever. And I befriended this guy named Roddy Chong, who I knew had played fiddle with Shania Twain on her big tours in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
What I didn't know was that he was also, when he was off the road with that, he was playing music with this band called Shadazy, if you remember them, and he played with Lonestar once in a while too. So we kind of befriended each other, and he kind of took me under his wing a little bit, and just trying to prepare me for coming to Nashville and what that looks like and stuff. And then I found out that he had this Lonestar gig, and he was actually going to be leaving to go back with Shania, and he was like, hey, you seem like you got your shit together. I don't know if I could do this, but maybe I can like get you an audition if you'd want that. So I'm like, yeah, that'd be amazing. So long story short, I actually moved to Nashville for like a week, and was able to audition with Lonestar. And the audition went pretty well. I went over to the guitar player's house and played through some of the songs. And he's like, all right, well, we've got gigs this weekend. Why don't you come out this weekend and we'll see how it goes. I'm like, yeah, amazing. Like, so we did that. And then the weekend was over, and they're like, all right, that was great. We're going to try out some other guys, and we'll let you know. So I was like, okay, well, that was a super cool experience to get to play 2 shows with Lonestar. And if that's all that ever comes of it, it was really cool to get to do that. So I moved back home. I shouldn't say move. I brought my suitcase and my guitar and fiddle back home, and checked out of the Best Western on Music Row and drove back to Minnesota. And then 2-3 weeks later, they called and were like, hey, yeah, you're the guy if you want it. So I was like, oh, well, that's unexpected. So
yeah,
wound up moving to Nashville kind of more permanently. Stayed on my friend's couch that I was telling you about. That's Minnesota Fiddle Player, and then wound up working with them for like 3 years. So it's kind of crazy. So I was touring by the time school had started in the winter. I had already been touring with Lonestar for like 2 months. So I was kind of tried to do both at the same time for a long time, which is really crazy. Like, that's not how things happen normally.
Right.
It's kind of bizarre, but that's just through incredible luck. That's what happened.
Now, is it during your time with Lonestar that you end up meeting Dierks? Because it seems like you guys have been together for like since early in his career.
Yeah. Well, I started with Dierks in 2010. So he had been going for a little while before I knew him. I met him once, like just briefly at a show. Like, I think I was working with Gretchen Wilson at the time, and we were on a show with Kenny Chesney playing a big stadium, and Dierks was on it too. And I remember meeting Dierks for like 5 seconds, like, hey, nice to meet you, shook his hand, but he would never remember that. We did play, so I'm a hockey player from growing up in Minnesota, played hockey
Yeah.
my whole life, and Dierks is a hockey player too. So before I was ever in his band, we actually played hockey against each other in this league in Nashville.
Oh, no way.
So I knew who he was, obviously, but he didn't know me. I auditioned with Dierks, and then we kind of put that together connection together, and the audition went really well. So yeah, I didn't really know him until I auditioned for his band.
I got you. So it's
Yeah.
it's cool too because as soon as you get in the band, like you're actually in some of the early music videos too. Right? I mean, like I know like on the Bluegrass record and a couple others. What was that like being like in the music videos?
Yeah, no, that's fun. Yeah, the first video I was in with Dierks was for the song called "Draw Me a Map," which is on his Up on the Ridge album.
Yep.
And yeah, that was probably, I'm gonna guess it was probably like a month or two in to being in his band, you know.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, it was really it's always fun to do that kind of stuff. And it's been cool that he has most of his videos have his band in them as well. So that's always kind of fun for us to get to be a part of it for sure.
Right. Now, how long were you with Dirks just playing on the road before he had you start coming in and actually doing some session work with them too on the albums?
Yeah, I don't do a ton of that, but I have done a little bit of that with him.
Mhm.
So we had the bluegrass record, and then the home record, uh, and then on the next one, which was called Riser,
Right.
which was that was the first record with kind of the production team that he's had for the last couple. He's had Ross Copperman produced that one, and honestly, I don't play on like a ton of sessions in town like some other people that you've probably chatted with. I do a decent amount, but I'm not doing a ton of that.
Yeah.
So Dirk's called one day and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing now?" I'm like, "Oh, nothing. What's going on?" Like, "Well, we're recording some stuff and think we want to fiddle on this song." So I'm like, "Oh, okay." So like I literally just went from hanging out at my house to being in the studio like 30 minutes later. He's like, "What are you doing right now?" So I drove over there, and we fired up the song, and the song that he wanted me to play on happened to be "Drunk on a Plane." So that
Wow.
was the one that I got to play a little bit of fiddle on, and since then, yeah, the I didn't play on his Black record at all. The Mountain record, which came out after that one, kind of the same thing. We had a gig on Sunday. It was a hurricane relief concert, benefit concert here in Nashville. And after the show, he approached me and our guitar player Ben. It's like, "Hey, what are you guys doing tomorrow? Or what are you doing this week?" We're like, "Nothing. What's going on?" All right, well, we're recording a record out in Telluride. We're leaving tomorrow. Can you guys come out for the week? So we were like, "Well, yeah, of course." So we
Yeah.
dropped everything and came out. But it's always been kind of last minute and kind of
Mhm.
like, you know, just I guess you just gotta be ready for whenever that could happen. But it's really
For sure.
fun. The road, playing on the road and playing in the studio are totally different things, and I'm still learning a lot about being a better studio musician.
Yeah.
But a great opportunity to do that for sure.
Now I've seen your guys' live show multiple times. Such a high energy show. Do you have a favorite song that comes up in the set every night that you're like getting hyped for, looking forward to?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we're we as a band have talked about this before, how we all feel really lucky that we play with Dirks for a lot of reasons, and
Mhm.
one of the reasons is that he records really great music,
Right.
which isn't always the case. Sometimes you're working with an artist and you're kind of like, oh, this song, I don't really love this song, but all and I'm not just saying this, but all of his songs are great. Like the show is really fun. We enjoy playing all the songs. But to pick one, I've always liked the energy of Free and Easy.
Mhm.
We sometimes we used to play that one kind of towards the top of the show, like maybe the second or third song.
Mhm.
Now we do it almost towards the end of the show. There was one tour where I think we ended the whole show with it. Um, and it just kind of fits. It's just got that great energy,
Yeah.
to open up a show or close it out. And so that one's a lot of fun. I don't even There's no fiddle on that song. A lot of banjo and a lot of tele guitar that our lead player takes, and acoustic instruments and stuff. So I play some big chords and kind of some rhythm guitar, but don't really have a lot to really think about other than that. So I can just kind of enjoy the energy and enjoy just being that one. So that's one that kind of comes to mind as being my favorite.
I've been itching for "How Am I Doing" to make it back into the set. We got it. You guys got to do it next summer.
Oh man, yeah, we did that when I started the band for
Really?
sure. Yeah.
Such a high
Strange
energy
to
song.
hear your voice. Yeah, no, that's a super high energy song.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've talked about bringing that one back,
Heck yeah.
and it hasn't quite made the cut. He's got a good problem that he's got too many hits. Like you can't play them all in
Such a
one set,
problem.
which is it's the best problem to have.
Yeah.
But we do wind up not playing a lot of his hit songs because we just can't play for 3 hours, you know.
Totally.
But that'd be a good one to throw back in. I'll pass it up the chain and see what happens.
Awesome. Now, take me through the night. You had a really cool experience meeting Charlie Daniels, and he actually brought you up on stage. Tell me about that night.
Okay, yeah, that was back when I played with Lonestar. I'm gonna guess it was 2003 or four, and we were at a festival called Jamboree in the Hills, which is up in the Ohio, West Virginia area. Um, and yeah, so I've had this fiddle. It's not the primary one that I play, but I've had this fiddle that I've had since I was a kid, and there's a few fiddle player autographs that I've had on it. The first one that I got, I went and saw Mark O'Connor play at this small venue in Minneapolis when I was living up there, and
Mhm.
had him sign it. And then I saw Vassar Clemens in a similar situation, and Alison Krauss. So I had three signatures on there, and I really wanted to get Charlie Daniels once I found out that we were going to be on the show with him. So I brought this fiddle from home, and I was telling our bass player at the time that I was hoping to get it signed, and he's like, "Oh, well, I know their guitar player really well. We're friends. So let me talk to his name's Sparky. Let me talk to Sparky
Mhm.
and see if he'll if Charlie would do that." So I'm like, "Oh man, that'd be amazing." So he does and comes back. He's like, "Yeah, Charlie says you can go up on his bus and meet him and he'll sign it for you." So
Wow.
I brought it up there and brought it up on his bus, like, "Hey, so nice to meet you, big fan, all this stuff." And he signs my fiddle, and I'm like, "Well, thank you so much." Getting ready to leave to not take up his time. And he invites me to sit down. It's like he was just the kindest, nicest person. In that moment, he's like, "Hey, sit down, tell me about yourself." So I talked to him about where I'm from and music and whatever for probably 5 minutes or so. Uh, is super nervous. And then he asks, he's like, "Hey, do you know any of my songs?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, of course, I know all your songs."
Right.
He's like, "All right, well, if you're gonna watch the show, I'll bring you up during Devil Went Down to Georgia, and we'll play that one together." I was like,
Wow.
"Wow!" So, yeah, I just couldn't even believe it. So I'm nervous the rest of the day, and I'm like practicing in the dressing room and stuff, and I'm standing side stage, but kind of assuming that he's gonna forget because we had talked at lunchtime, and now it was like 8 o'clock at night, and
Right.
I just figured it wasn't going to happen. I didn't want to get myself too excited about something that was good. So I was like, he's not going to bring you up. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Ready in case he does, but he did. So he brought me out and introduced me. He's like, "Hey, this guy's playing in Lonestar. They're playing next, and we're going to do one together." So we played Devil Went Down to Georgia, and I don't even remember it. I was just so hyped on adrenaline and excitement that I literally don't remember it happening. Um, but when the song was over, it's like, "Oh, let's do one more," and then he kicks into Orange Blossom Special, so we play that one together, and it was just one of the coolest things
I
ever.
bet.
Period. Just to get to do that. I've got like one kind of grainy photo that was taken from like a weird angle. That's like my only keepsake from performing with him. I couldn't find a video of it anywhere. This was before YouTube and stuff.
Yeah.
So all I have is like my faded memory in this one picture, but it was and signed fiddle, of course. But yeah, it was just the coolest thing ever. He was such a kind, nice person,
Yeah.
to just befriend somebody that he had never met before. He didn't know if I could play, didn't know anything, and just invited me out. So it was really cool.
So just having that one interaction with him, what did it mean for you to be able to honor him playing "The Devil Went Down to Georgia" at the CMA Awards that year that they paid tribute to him?
Yeah, such a crazy full circle thing. I wasn't expecting to be a part of that. I wasn't I
I
wasn't
heard.
supposed to be a part of that. So that was 2020 when COVID was crazy,
Yeah.
and and Janae Fleener, who's this amazing fiddle player, she just won CMA for her fourth Musician of the Year award in a row. She's won four in a row now, which is crazy. A-list session player, awesome bluegrass fiddle player, great singer, songwriter, all of it. She's awesome. But she was supposed to do it, because she was nominated for CMA Musician of the Year. I think that was her. It was her second time being nominated. So she had won the year before, and I think she was the first female to ever win the award. So she was supposed to have this like special feature, like featuring Janae, rating CMA Musician of the Year,
Yeah.
all that stuff. Because Charlie had passed that year, they wanted to do a big tribute to open the show, but she couldn't do the show, like super last minute. She tested positive for COVID and couldn't do it. And I was already on the show to be a part of the Charlie Pride tribute that was also happening, which was another just crazy, crazy honor to get to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And when I got called about that, they said, "Hey, you're gonna do this. Janae's gonna do that." There's a friend named Billy who plays fiddle with John Party. He was on the show. Like, we got 3 fiddle players. If anybody goes down for COVID, if anybody tests positive and can't do the show, like, y'all are gonna step up and cover for each other. It's like, all right,
Yeah.
that's fine. Let's do that. Not thinking it would happen, of course, but then like 3 days before the show, Janae tested positive, and I get a call at like 11 at night, like, "Hey, you're doing the Charlie Daniels tribute." I was like, "What?" I just couldn't even believe it.
Yeah.
So yeah, so to get to do that, to be a part of that, it was weird because I wasn't like, Janae was supposed to do it, and she should have done it, but she wasn't able to. But I was super honored to get to be, the pinch hitter in that last moment, and it was just really fun to get to do that live. It was an incredible honor, but one of the coolest things I've ever done.
For sure. Now, I like to close all my interviews. What's a piece of advice that you would give to an aspiring musician, someone that was in your shoes maybe a few years ago that wants to be in your spot one day?
Well, okay, that's a good question. I would say that if you're not living in Nashville, I'm gonna assume country music, but it applies to anywhere. If you're want to get into pop music or whatever it is, it's just not going to happen if you're not there, if you're not making strides to be in the spot where it is. So I would say find a reason to move to Nashville. Maybe it's for school, maybe it's to just visit for a month and see what happens, but like do that first. And then the other thing I guess I would say is just to keep at it. It's not super wise, unheard of wisdom, but or advice, I should say, but you have to, you don't know where the road is going to lead. Like, I didn't know when I was 13 playing at a VFW on a Saturday night for a bunch of 70-year-old people doing the foxtrot. I didn't I didn't know that was going to be helpful in playing, in getting to Nashville and playing for touring and doing the kind of stuff that I've been so fortunate to get to do.
Yeah.
But it does. And every little step is hopefully you're learning something every time you take your instrument out of your case, and whether it's practicing or performing. For me personally, I learned so much just getting my feet wet and playing live, even if maybe I wasn't fully prepared to do that, just kind of thrown into the mix and doing it, because
Mhm.
you learn so much just being in it. You can only go so far in your bedroom practicing to yourself, but once you get in front of people, you learn how to interact with the crowd, you learn how to manage nerves that might come up, you learn how to think on the fly, you learn how to read other musicians, like, oh, here comes the ending because the drummer's doing this, and I've never played the song, but I feel it coming, so all those kinds of things, you just kind of, all the intangibles you kind of just learn. So I guess just keep at it, and be nice to people. That's another big one. Move to Nashville. There's a lot of people that move to Nashville and they're the hot shots from wherever they came from, and they carry themselves like that. And
Yeah.
people just don't have time for that. There's so many talented musicians in town. There's a million world class, name it, anything, bass players, guitar players, fiddle players, whatever. And if you're a jerk, nobody's gonna want to work with you. So just be
Right.
nice, be authentic, I would say. Don't network for the sake of furthering your career, but network for the sake of making friends and being part of the music community, and good things come from that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I guess that's what I would say off the top of my head.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment, and check out my music on all streaming platforms at Justin McCormick. See you guys next time.